The first match at the 2015 Brianza Fight Night featured the reigning champion, a winner from 2 years ago. There was no tournament last year, Remy. He was up against Jochen from Berlin. No, not that Jochen, the other Jochen, DJ. 20 people attempted to qualify, and the top 8 went through to the finals in the evening. And here we actually have the 2 middle seeds, DJ seeded 4th and Remy seeded 5th, so we're expecting a close match, and we certainly got one. All of the matches in this tournament went to 5 points, and Remy took the first point, but then DJ took a few points back to take the lead, and then Remy took the lead again, and then DJ took the lead again. It was neck and neck all the way through this first match. Remy then took a point to take him to match point. The scoreline at this moment, 4-3, and then he actually gifted it back to DJ with a stupid drop, unforced error there. And then we are on 4-4, match point, next point wins. And Jochen takes the first match in spectacular fashion, knocking out the reigning champion. The next match was a much more one-sided affair. Toon from Belgium going up against Jochen from Berlin. This was Toon's first ever fight night, and Jochen is the #1 ranked player in the world, coming into this having won his last 7 tournaments and on a 22-match winning streak since the beginning of 2013. So Jochen didn't have to put in too much effort in the early going, but did make it into an entertaining match, despite winning quite comfortably at 5 points to 0. The next match was between 3rd seed Ian, who is British but lives in Italy, so he had some local crowd support, up against Emilio from Greece. Ian is a past winner of Fight Night, taking the title at Juggling on Ice 2013, and came 3rd place at the last Brianza Fight Night, also in 2013. There was an interesting contrast of fighting styles between Ian and Emilio. Emilio would generally be a lot more mobile, skirting around the edge of his opponents all the way through qualifications, waiting for them to make a mistake, which got him into the tournament. Ian was a lot more direct, often too direct. In this case, that point wasn't awarded because Ian didn't continue to juggle afterwards. Sometimes Emilio had something to say about the brutality of some of Ian's attacks, even though he did actually win that point. Emilio swapped it up a bit to try and find a way through, like throwing his club at Ian's pattern. That didn't work. In the end, Ian's more direct attacks directly through the pattern of Emilio was what won out in the end. And soon he had match point and converted that match point on the first attempt to take the first match, and he went through to the semi-finals. The last round of 8 match featured Davide, the only Italian player to make it through qualifications, and yours truly, Luke, from Berlin, the only player to score a point off of Jochen in the qualification. Despite what the mostly Italian audience might have been hoping, this was also a bit of a one-sided affair. Like Jochen, I'd come into this tournament on a winning streak, this time 12 matches and 4 tournaments. The last time I lost a match was actually to Jochen in Hamburg last year in the final. Davide put up a good fight and put on a good show, despite accidental contact with his face by my club at one point, and then later on managed to get a point off of me, which seemed to go down pretty well. But in the end, that's all the fight he could put up, and I took the last point, and that settled all of the players in the semi-finals. The first semi-final featured the first 2 winners from the first round, Jochen from Berlin up against Jochen from Berlin. Jochen took the first point, and then Jochen could have taken the second point straight away due to unforced error from Jochen, but after messing around was not awarded the point. He had to wait for another error by Jochen to take the second point of the match. DJ provided quite a lot of entertainment, sometimes with silly mistakes after playfulness, but also with some quite nice attacks against his far higher ranked opponent. In the end, JJ was far more consistent and had much better attacks and took the match with the final score of 5 points to 2. This brings us to the second semi-final featuring 2 British players, Ian, Deady, and me, Luke. Starting off with a clear attack. The next point, a drop from Ian, which was quite easy. The next point, a club steal, which is very effective and quite satisfying. The next point, slightly controversial, with a club steal, which was ruled a little bit too late because my high throw had already hit the floor. so that was disallowed. The next point was a high throw over the top, avoiding the attack. Ian dropping, setting up for 4-1. 4 match points now. Ian saved one of those match points with a good attack, and then the last point of the semi-final featured an injury. Ian was not injured, Luke was not injured, a audience member was injured. Oh, a club directly to the face, which is quite unfortunate. Luke went through to the final, I went through to the final, Ian went through to the third place match. In fact, the third place match began immediately afterwards. Ian took the early lead with a few points over DJ with some very clean attacks. DJ could have got back into the match if he'd have stolen this club properly and then continued on with a clean or in control pattern, but he never had a clean pattern and was never in control and then dropped, so he didn't take that point. He did take the next point though. However, this was not the start of an impressive comeback because he lacked consistency and Ian's attacks were just too effective. And in the end, the last point of the match went to Ian. This was the second tournament in a row in Brianza that Ian finished in third place. The DJ's fourth place finish gave him enough points to rise up to 11th place in the overall Fight Night Combat rankings. Which brings us to the final match of the night between Jochen, JJ, and me, Luke. This is the 7th time we've met in a Fight Night final, and 8th time overall if we include the Fight Night from last year at the EJC where we met in the semi-finals. And for those keeping track, no, I have not yet beaten him, but then nobody has since 2010. These early points were quite frustrating because I felt I really should have been able to make a few clean catches here. Though Jochen did manage to get in a few good attacks before I did a stupid drop, for example here. That looks good, but I still went back to a stupid mistake. For example, this club. I really should have been able to catch this. Excuse my language. Which brings the score all the way up to 4-0 very quickly. Despite my errors, both forced and unforced, it was very satisfying to get a good point back against Jochen to make real contact with his clubs. That doesn't happen very often. In fact, in all his matches, 19 qualification matches and 3 tournament matches, he had a total of 4 points scored against him, which is pretty remarkable. Amazing domination. I took a bit of a tumble, hurt my leg there at the end. But it did mean that Jochen took the tournament, takes 500 ranking points, confirms himself as the #1 undefeated tournament player here at Fight Night Combat. This result leaves me in 3rd place in the overall rankings, but moves me up to 1st place in the 2015 race rankings. That might all change in a few weeks' time at the NJF, at the Dutch Juggling Convention. 2015 is a 750-point tournament. Jochen's going to be there, I'm going to be there, loads of other top 10 and top 20 players are going to be there. We're really looking forward to it, so we'll see you there at the NJF 2015.